Well, they are hoping, I believe, that as the largely asymptomatic Omicron variant races through these facilities virtually unchecked, that it will result in players not having symptoms or, and look, we got to be realistic about this. They're not going to self-report their symptoms. They're going to put their head down and they're going to play. When TJ Watt tested positive a few weeks ago on a Monday, some people said to me, well, now we know why he didn't play all that well the day before against Cincinnati. He probably wasn't feeling well. TJ Watt's not wired to raise his hand and say, I'm not feeling well. Football players are wired to play football. That's what makes it so remarkable when a guy like Ben Roethlisberger says, I'm not feeling well, and he ends up being positive for COVID-19. Most guys would not do that. And Roethlisberger is doing the right thing, but it is the thing that cuts so dramatically against who and what football players are and what they stand for. But that was one of the first texts I got from somebody in a position of significant influence with one of the teams. Once these new protocols went through, everyone is going to hide their symptoms. And unless somebody's got a fever or they're staggering around from lethargy and every other thing that may affect them to the point where they can't control it and conceal it, this is what we're going to see, this is what we're going to have, and this is what we're going to be dealing with as we go forward. And the problem, though, is for the teams, the idea that if you do start getting positives, if guys have obvious symptoms, they do targeted testing, and you do the high-risk testing based upon who they were exposed to, that's when you can have the domino effect where you get a bunch of guys testing positive who are asymptomatic, but you have to test them now. And nothing stops them from revising the protocol further. Because what they did last week, they took a protocol that, as it was applied to the current situation, made it harder to play games and get everyone paid. If they realize that these protocols are going to jeopardize the ability to play games and get everyone paid, you know what they're going to do? They're going to change them again. Because they are getting through the season. They are getting the games in. The owners aren't going to lose their money, Charean, and the players aren't going to lose their money. That's the wink-nod deal that labor and management have done here.
Well, and that's why we saw the protocols changed last week. And you're right, if it affects games going forward, we're going to see them changed again. I did think, like you said, though, that the new protocols would allow for players to return much quicker, and we really haven't seen that so far. Like, I was convinced that Taylor Heineke would start tonight, and it didn't happen. Baker Mayfield last night, it didn't happen. So I am amazed that these new protocols, guys aren't coming back as quick as I thought they were going to come back, but because I thought we were going to see some really quick turnarounds. Theoretically, you can come back if you're vaccinated the day after testing positive, but we haven't seen that so far, Mike.
The Packers have a player on the COVID-19 reserve list, receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and the knee-jerk reaction when you hear that is, uh-oh, let's hope Aaron Rodgers isn't a close contact. But remember, the 90-day testing holiday that applies to him after his positive from November also precludes him from that automatic 5-day absence that happens if you are unvaccinated and you are close contact with someone who's infected. So for the same reason he's not tested every day and won't be until 2 days after the NFC Championship if they win that game, he also isn't subject to 5 days of absence if he has close contact with a player who does test positive. So they don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers not being available. And Charean, that may be the saving grace here. Once every team deals with this and the virus does wash through the facility, you got a bunch of guys who are exempt from testing of any kind through the end of the season. That was a point we made over the weekend. So we won't get to the point, with the Browns or the Rams or Washington or now the Chiefs potentially, where we're worried about will they be able to suit up enough guys. And one thing I was told over the weekend, 44 is the magic number. I'm surprised it's that high. You tried to get the answer from the commissioner last week at the ownership meetings, and he gave you a non-answer. When calls were being made to determine whether they could go forward with the 3 games that got postponed, 21 on offense, 20 on defense, kicker, punter, long snapper, and basically 2 quarterbacks, 7 offensive linemen as part of that. If you fall below that, that's when they're going to say, we don't expect you to go forward. That's a high number. So it's not going to take much for a game to get scrapped if they can't postpone it.
Well, and then, like I said, the Rams last week were at 29. There's no way you could have played a game with that number of people on the COVID reserve list. So, absolutely, Mike. I mean, that seems like a reasonable number. It is higher than I thought, simply because I thought the NFL would force teams to play with whatever they had. You saw Kendall Hinton start at quarterback last season for the Broncos. So I was convinced they were going to say, throw whoever you have out there and let's go play.
I think the Broncos ended up having to go forward with Hinton because of the circumstances of that case, where the quarterbacks reportedly took off their tracking devices, put them in the four corners of the room, gathered in the middle of the room, and watched film, not realizing that it was all being, or not caring that it was all being recorded via surveillance camera. They all know the cameras are in the rooms, but that's what got the Broncos busted, and I think made the league less inclined to postpone that game. But I thought what they would do, and I saw something recently, and I didn't track down the story, but it looks like what the NBA allowed a team to do was go out and sign players on an emergency basis to fill out the roster. I thought that's what the NFL would do. Push comes to shove, double secret protocol. You need 10 guys, go pick up 10 guys. You need 5 guys, go get 5 guys. Whatever it takes to not have to cancel these games. But there was real talk about cancellation, not forfeit, but cancellation of those 3 games. The union got involved aggressively to persuade the NFL to postpone, because I think the NFL didn't want to start down that path. Because I think once you give teams an out, once they know there's a fallback, you're going to see that potentially become that safety net that they're less vigilant about keeping themselves from getting positive, because they just believe that if it hits the fan, it's not going to be a question of me not getting paid this week. It's just a question of we play the game a day or two later.
Well, and you look at a team like the Buccaneers with a quarterback like Tom Brady, and they haven't had the COVID issues that other teams have had. And I guarantee you that's part of Tom Brady saying, look, here's what we're going to do, and we are not going to get COVID in this place. And they've been very good. And just like last year, I still think that making the playoffs and being successful in the playoffs is going to come down to how COVID vigilant some of these teams are going forward. Are you going to have your quarterback when you need him? Are you going to have your key players when you need them to win, whether it be a key game like tonight's games for these teams or a playoff game going forward?
Bruce Arians from time to time will brag about the fact that when the Buccaneers go on the road, they adhere to the unofficial protocol of everyone stays in the hotel for the evening, because that isn't the case as a general rule for the vaccinated players this year. I think the guy who gets the credit for that is Tom Brady. I think when Tommy goes door to door, you better be in your room. You better be in your bed or playing Xbox or PS5 or messing with your phone or doing whatever, anything other than not being in that room, or you're going to have to listen to him.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.